spent the last how many years of my life seeing her with Kody and seeing their marriage. But, I want her to be happy.
When Robyn Brown first stepped into the complex, already delicate dynamic of the Brown family, she seemed to bring with her an air of mystery and promise. To the audience of Sister Wives, she appeared as a young, hopeful woman who was willing to embrace the challenges and beauty of a plural marriage. Her story was presented as a modern fairy tale wrapped in spiritual devotion, a single mother seeking love, stability, and faith, who found her way to a family whose entire identity was built around the principles of polygamy. But as time passed and the episodes aired, that picture-perfect narrative began to unravel. What was once seen as a tale of unity and shared love slowly revealed itself to be a carefully constructed facade. Beneath the tearful confessions, soft-spoken words, and endless declarations of wanting peace and harmony, there lay a strategy, a quiet manipulation, and a relentless drive to secure power and position for herself and her children, even at the expense of everyone else in the family. To truly understand how things came to this point, one must go back to the beginning. When Robyn joined the Brown family, Kody Brown was already married to 3 women. Mary, his first and legal wife at the time. Janelle, his second wife and the one often described as the most practical and independent. And Christine, the third wife, who was deeply invested in the ideals of polygamy and in keeping the family united. The Browns were no strangers to hardship. Their lives were a constant balancing act of faith, finances, and emotional labor. Between them, they were raising a vast number of children, managing multiple households, and navigating the intense scrutiny that came with being one of the most high-profile plural families in America. Even before Robyn's arrival, cracks had begun to show. Kody was stretched thin, financially, emotionally, and physically. His time was divided between 3 households, and tensions often flared as the wives struggled with feelings of neglect, jealousy, and resentment. Money was always tight, and the burden of raising so many children was immense. And then, into this already fragile ecosystem, came Robyn. From the very beginning, Robyn positioned herself as the peacemaker. She spoke softly, cried easily, and often framed herself as someone who wanted nothing more than to bring everyone together. Her narrative was simple. She loved the idea of family, of unity, of building something greater than herself. She insisted she wasn't there to replace anyone or disrupt the delicate balance of the existing wives. She just wanted to fit in, to be accepted, and to contribute to the family's collective dream. But as the seasons unfolded, viewers began to notice a troubling pattern. Robyn's words didn't always match her actions. She would often speak of sacrifice, yet somehow always ended up benefiting the most. She would express sorrow at the idea of division, while simultaneously making decisions that pushed the other wives further away. Her tears, once seen as a sign of deep emotion, began to look more like a tactic, a way to manipulate situations and deflect criticism. Christine Brown's later memoir would blow the lid off much of this carefully constructed image. In her book, Christine painted a stark picture of what life in the Brown family was really like behind the cameras. According to Christine, while she and Janelle struggled to make ends meet, Robyn's household thrived. Robyn's children had more resources, more time with Kody, and a far higher standard of living than anyone else's. The supposed equality of the plural marriage was a myth. One of the most glaring examples of Robyn's duplicity was her constant insistence that she had no desire to replace anyone or become the favorite. Over and over again, she swore that her intentions were pure. She wasn't trying to compete. She was merely there to love Kody and support the family. And yet, what was the end result? Robyn became Kody's legal wife. The only wife with that status after Kody divorced Mary in order to marry Robyn. This legal marriage allowed Kody to adopt Robyn's children from a previous relationship, a move Robyn had always claimed was purely for the children's well-being. But this legal shift also had profound consequences for the other wives. Mary, once the first and only legal spouse, was suddenly relegated to the same spiritual wife status as Janelle and Christine. As time went on, Kody began to spend more and more of his time at Robyn's house. At first, he claimed it was because of the younger children, because they needed him more. But gradually, his visits to the other households became fewer and farther between. Before long, it was as though Kody no longer had 3 other wives at all. He was living full-time with Robyn, and the plural marriage that had once been the very foundation of the family was effectively dead. Christine's book also revealed the depth of financial inequity within the family. While Janelle and Christine were constantly scraping by, Robyn's household seemed to have endless resources. This disparity was most clearly symbolized by the McMansion, a massive, luxurious home that Robyn insisted on buying. At a time when the family's finances were already stretched thin, Robyn pushed for the purchase of this extravagant property. Kody backed her completely, even as Christine and Janelle voiced concerns about how it would impact everyone else. The McMansion became a point of deep resentment. It wasn't just about money. It was about priorities. It was about whose needs were being met and whose were being ignored. Time and again, Kody chose Robyn's comfort over everyone else's struggles. Christine and Janelle were left to make do with far less, their households under constant financial strain, while Robyn's family lived in luxury. The hypocrisy reached its peak during the COVID-19 pandemic. Kody and Robyn portrayed themselves as the most cautious members of the family, enforcing strict rules on everyone else. They demanded that the other wives and their children adhere to an extreme set of guidelines, often shaming them for wanting to see loved ones. And yet, behind the scenes, Robyn was violating those very same rules. Christine revealed that Robyn had a nanny coming to her home every single day throughout the pandemic, a direct contradiction of the standards she expected everyone else to follow. This nanny wasn't just an occasional visitor. She was a constant presence. The double standard didn't end there. Kody and Robyn were also spotted out in public during this period, dining at restaurants, shopping at Victoria's Secret, even dancing at bars, all without masks. While Christine and Janelle were being vilified for wanting to see their adult children or grandchildren, Kody and Robyn were living by an entirely different set of rules. This hypocrisy was a breaking point for many viewers. It became clear that the narrative Robyn and Kody presented to the world was just that, a narrative. Carefully crafted, deeply misleading, and utterly self-serving. Perhaps the most heartbreaking aspect of Christine's revelations was the emotional toll this dynamic took on the children. Christine spoke openly about the pain her children experienced as they watched their father prioritize Robyn's household over theirs. Christine's son, Gabriel, was particularly hurt by Kody's absence. Gabriel had once been incredibly close to his father, but during the pandemic, that relationship deteriorated. When Gabriel contracted COVID himself, he realized how little his father truly knew about his life. The distance wasn't just physical. It was emotional, profound, and devastating. For Christine, this was the final straw. She could no longer justify staying in a marriage where her children's pain was ignored, where their needs were secondary to Robyn's comfort. When Christine finally made the decision to leave, it was a watershed moment for the entire family. For years, she had been the one holding things together, the wife most committed to the ideals of plural marriage. Her departure signaled not just the end of her relationship with Kody, but the collapse of the entire family structure. After Christine's exit, Janelle also began to reconsider her place in the family. She had always been pragmatic, focused on her children and her own goals. But as she watched Kody's blatant favoritism towards Robyn, she realized there was nothing left to fight for. Mary, meanwhile, had been pushed to the margins long before. Her relationship with Kody had been strained for years, particularly after the legal divorce. By the time Christine left, Mary and Kody's marriage was little more than a formality. In the end, Robyn achieved exactly what she had once claimed she didn't want: a monogamous marriage with Kody, complete with legal status, financial security, and exclusive access to his time and attention. The tragedy, of course, is that this came at the cost of an entire family. What began as a dream of unity and shared faith ended in bitterness, division, and betrayal. Robyn's tears, her endless proclamations of wanting love and harmony, now ring hollow. Christine's book laid bare the truth. While everyone else was sacrificing, Robyn was benefiting. While others were struggling, she was thriving. And perhaps most damning of all, Robyn knew exactly what she was doing. The downfall of the Brown family wasn't some inevitable result of external pressures or societal judgment. It was the direct consequence of a series of choices made by Kody and Robyn, choices that prioritized their own desires over the well-being of everyone else. Today, as viewers look back over the many seasons of Sister Wives, it's impossible not to see the patterns. The lies are clearer now, the manipulations more obvious. What once looked like selflessness now appears as strategy. Christine Brown, in her heartfelt and revealing memoir, recounts a deeply troubling dynamic that unfolded within their once united plural family, shedding light on the patterns of manipulation and deceit that ultimately led to the crumbling of their relationships. In her book, Christine reflects on how Kody Brown, once a father and husband who was supposed to represent balance and fairness, began to change dramatically after Robyn entered the family. Christine writes with painstaking clarity about how Kody's words, tone, and even his very mannerisms began to mirror Robyn's own, as if he had surrendered his individuality to become an echo of her thoughts and desires. It was as though Robyn's voice had become his voice, and her will had replaced his own. Christine explains that Kody began parroting Robyn's exact talking points, repeating her opinions word for word, and defending her positions with a ferocity he never extended to anyone else. As time went on, his loyalty to Robyn became absolute, and his presence in the other wives' homes diminished until he was almost entirely absent. Instead, he spent nearly every waking moment at Robyn's house, reinforcing her rules, upholding her preferences, and shaping his decisions around her wishes. To Christine and the other wives, it became painfully clear that Kody was no longer an independent leader or partner. He had become Robyn's puppet, dancing to her strings. This wasn't merely a matter of favoritism or affection. It was as though Robyn had positioned herself as the unquestioned authority, and Kody willingly complied. The situation grew even more infuriating because Robyn appeared completely oblivious, or perhaps deliberately blind, to how obvious this was to everyone else. Christine writes with biting honesty, questioning how Robyn could possibly be so dense as to think the rest of the family couldn't see through her act. The manipulation was transparent, and yet Robyn seemed to operate under the illusion that her actions and lies were hidden behind a veneer of piety and innocence. Christine then turns her attention to one of Robyn's most brazen falsehoods, her claim that she loved Meri like a sister. Christine describes this as one of the most laughable and insulting lies Robyn ever told. Robyn publicly portrayed herself as Meri's loyal supporter, especially during the devastating catfishing scandal that rocked the family. She would cry crocodile tears, insisting she only wanted to help Meri heal and recover. But behind the scenes, her behavior told a very different story. Robyn would throw Meri under the bus the moment it became convenient, always making sure that her own position as Kody's primary partner remained unchallenged. Christine reveals that Robyn was far more involved in the catfishing incident than she ever admitted. The entire scandal had its roots in Robyn's own Facebook group, a space she managed closely, and she, along with her best friend, had direct contact with the person behind the fake identity who targeted Meri. This level of involvement led many, both inside and outside the family, to suspect that Robyn had orchestrated the entire ordeal from the very beginning. The theory, as Christine carefully outlines, is that Robyn may have used the catfishing incident as a calculated strategy to alienate Kody from Meri completely. The timing was suspicious. Almost immediately after Kody and Meri's legal divorce, a move that allowed Kody to marry Robyn legally, this scandal erupted, pushing Meri further to the margins of the family. Christine doesn't outright accuse Robyn of masterminding the plan, but she notes how conveniently everything fell into place for Robyn. It was almost as if Robyn had set out to eliminate Meri as a rival, both emotionally and legally, to solidify her position as Kody's one true wife. From here, Christine addresses another of Robyn's persistent lies, her claim that we all contribute equally. This assertion, Christine explains, is not just inaccurate, but outright deceitful. In her book, Christine lays bare the truth about the family's finances, revealing that Robyn and Kody consistently funneled the majority of the family's money towards themselves. While the other wives, Christine, Janelle, and Meri, were left to scrape by with whatever meager funds remained, Robyn ensured that her own needs and desires were fully met. Robyn liked to maintain the illusion that she was humble and selfless, claiming she didn't want lavish possessions or an extravagant lifestyle. For a time, Christine even believed her. But during the COVID pandemic, Robyn's true ambitions became impossible to ignore. While the rest of the family struggled with debt, medical bills, and the stress of financial instability, Robyn suddenly decided she wanted a massive, luxurious home. Christine recounts how this decision left the other wives stunned. Despite the financial strain everyone else was under, Kody and Robyn somehow managed to pay off Robyn's debts completely, and they secured her dream home, a sprawling 7,000-square-foot property that dwarfed the houses of the other wives. The down payment for this mansion didn't even come from Robyn's own savings. Instead, it was funded by money contributed by Meri and Janelle, both of whom were already stretched thin financially. To make matters worse, Robyn also ended up with the largest and most valuable portion of the family's shared land at Coyote Pass. Christine highlights the bitter irony of Robyn's constant rhetoric about fairness and equality when, in reality, she took far more than her share and left others to suffer. Robyn, Christine observes, never had a meaningful side hustle or business venture that contributed to the family's income. Her contributions were negligible, yet she reaped the greatest rewards. This was yet another glaring example of Robyn's deceit. Perhaps the most profound and damaging lie Robyn told, Christine writes, was her insistence that plural marriage was sacred to her. Robyn often spoke of her deep faith and commitment to the principles of plural marriage. She claimed it had been her dream since childhood to be part of a plural family, that she was motivated by spiritual devotion rather than selfish ambition. Christine, however, exposes this as a calculated performance. If plural marriage were truly sacred to Robyn, she asks, why did Robyn position herself to become Kody's only legal wife? Why did she prioritize financial security for herself and her children above the well-being of the entire family? Most tellingly, if plural marriage were the cornerstone of Robyn's faith, why did she allow the family to devolve into monogamy, with Kody effectively living only with her? Christine argues that Robyn's actions reveal the truth. It was never about faith, unity, or shared principles. It was about winning. Robyn wanted to win Kody, to isolate him from his other wives, and to emerge as the sole and uncontested partner. By hiding behind religious language and pretending to be devoted to the higher ideals of plural marriage, Robyn successfully manipulated the situation to her advantage, all while maintaining a public image of piety and humility. Christine then delves into another of Robyn's audacious lies, the claim that she didn't break up the family. Christine finds this assertion especially insulting because every single wife who has since left the family has pointed to the same issue: Kody's blatant and overwhelming favoritism toward Robyn. The pattern was unmistakable. Kody spent the majority of his time with Robyn, channeled the bulk of the family's financial resources into Robyn's household, and consistently made decisions that benefited Robyn at the expense of everyone else. Christine writes that you don't need to be Sherlock Holmes to solve this mystery. The evidence was right there for everyone to see. And yet Robyn continues to deny her role in the family's collapse. To Christine, this level of denial is almost surreal. Robyn and Kody together dismantled the family, piece by piece, and yet Robyn stands apart as if she were merely an innocent bystander. Christine cannot stomach the dishonesty of this narrative, especially knowing how deeply the other wives and their children were hurt by the fallout. Robyn's manipulations were not limited to financial or emotional dominance. Christine recalls how Robyn repeatedly claimed she had no control over where Kody lived or spent his time. Whenever confronted with accusations of monopolizing Kody's presence, Robyn would shrug her shoulders, cry dramatically, and feign helplessness. She would say, "I don't know why he's always here," as if Kody's constant presence in her home were some strange coincidence beyond her control. But Christine saw through this act. Kody was practically glued to Robyn's couch, rarely leaving her house except for brief, obligatory visits elsewhere. To believe Robyn's story, one would have to accept that this was all pure happenstance, which Christine, and anyone else observing the situation, knew was absurd. Robyn's denials were yet another layer of deception designed to obscure her true influence. Christine's book also addresses Robyn's relationship with Mary in greater depth. While Christine doesn't dwell excessively on this topic, she makes it clear that Robyn's treatment of Mary was cruel and self-serving. From Christine's perspective, a true plural wife, someone genuinely committed to the ideals of a shared family, would prioritize the collective good and ensure that every wife felt valued and respected. Robyn did the opposite. She took Mary's money for her own benefit, using it to fund the down payment on her lavish home. She undermined Mary's marriage by taking her place as Kody's legal and emotional partner. Robyn had been by Kody's side every single day, completely inseparable, and all the while she knew deep down that the words coming out of her mouth were false, every public statement carefully crafted to maintain an illusion she had no right to uphold. She knew full well where Kody spent his time, whose house he stayed in, and how heavily involved he was with her, and yet she had the audacity to stand before the cameras, look directly into them, and spin her version of events as if the rest of us were too blind, too naive, or too foolish to see through the act. There was a brazenness to it, a kind of arrogant confidence in her ability to control the narrative, as though repeating the same falsehoods often enough would magically transform them into truths. Time and again, she leaned on the same rehearsed lines, none more grating than her constant refrain about the so-called sacrifices she claimed to have made for the family. In her carefully curated speeches, Robyn always positioned herself as the ultimate martyr, the woman who had given up everything to support the collective good, forever painting herself as the long-suffering, endlessly giving soul at the heart of the Brown clan. She spoke endlessly of how she had helped with the children, how she had sacrificed her dreams, her comfort, and even her happiness for the sake of the group, as though without her unwavering devotion the entire family would have crumbled to dust. But when one dared to scratch beneath the surface of these claims, a very different picture emerged, one that revealed her words for what they truly were: manipulative theatrics designed to maintain control. For what precisely had Robyn sacrificed? She had not been left destitute or vulnerable like the others. On the contrary, she became Kody's only legal wife, the one with actual protection under the law and the most secure financial footing of them all. She lived in the grandest house, a veritable mansion compared to the modest homes of the other wives, and she alone enjoyed Kody's undivided loyalty and attention. If sacrifice looked like wealth, privilege, and exclusive access to the husband, then it was a form of sacrifice most women would eagerly sign up for, provided, of course, that Kody himself wasn't part of the package. Even as the family fractured, and the other wives found the strength to leave, Robyn remained resolutely self-centered, interpreting the collapse not through the lens of collective heartbreak, but solely in terms of how it affected her personally. Instead of mourning the dissolution of a plural marriage built over decades, she made it entirely about her trauma, her suffering, her loss of the carefully staged fantasy she had sold to the world. Christine, in her book, painted a damning picture of this behavior, recounting specific moments in which Robyn's selfishness was laid bare. Christine described how, during particularly painful conversations, when emotions were raw and hearts were breaking, Robyn would react not with empathy, but with anger, frustration, and a warped sense of personal injury. While others asked Christine gently if she was certain about her decision to leave Kody, Robyn lashed out, turning the focus on herself. She never asked, "Are you okay?" or offered comfort by saying, "I'm so sad for you." Instead, she demanded to know, "How does this affect me?" It was as though Christine's decision to leave wasn't about Christine's pain, her children's well-being, or even the death of a marriage. It was about Robyn losing her perfectly curated version of a polygamous family, one that, in truth, was little more than a facade. Robyn's version of polygamy was, as Christine so aptly described it, entirely fake. She wanted the optics of sisterhood, the appearance of shared bonds and mutual respect, without any of the genuine reciprocity or sacrifices such a lifestyle demanded. Christine's words cut deeply because they exposed not just Robyn's behavior, but also the underlying corruption of the entire family structure, particularly the way resources were hoarded and manipulated to serve Robyn and Kody's agenda. One particularly telling story Christine shared involved the purchase of her house in Flagstaff. When she and Kody initially bought the property, both their names were proudly placed on the title, a symbolic gesture that made Christine feel like they were a proper married couple, at least in spirit. It was one of the few assets she believed they truly shared, and though their relationship was unconventional, the joint ownership gave her a sense of partnership. Then, quite suddenly, Kody asked her to refinance the mortgage so that only her name would remain. He framed it as an act of generosity, telling Christine that this way, the house would be an asset entirely in her name, something that would ultimately benefit her and provide her with security. Though surprised, Christine accepted his explanation, grateful, at least outwardly, that Kody was thinking of her interests. She even admitted to feeling a small pang of disappointment, wishing they could have kept both names on the title as a symbol of unity. But she let it go, trusting in his reasoning. That trust was brutally shattered when, just a week later, Kody confessed the real reason behind his request. He couldn't purchase a house with Robyn if his name was tied to Christine's mortgage. Robyn hadn't yet found a property to buy, and Kody needed to keep his financial records clear to make it happen. In that instant, Christine realized that the move wasn't about protecting her at all. It was about systematically disentangling Kody from her life while simultaneously binding him even more tightly to Robyn. The revelation was crushing. Something that had once held deep emotional meaning for Christine was reduced to a cold, transactional maneuver designed to prioritize Robyn above everyone else. The humiliation of it all was almost unbearable, not just because of what it revealed about Kody's loyalties, but because of the broader implications for the entire family dynamic. It wasn't just a house. It was a metaphor for how Kody was slowly erasing his commitments to the other wives while funneling every resource into his relationship with Robyn. Christine's account went on to detail the financial manipulations that occurred during the family's move to Flagstaff. Kody and Robyn, unable to afford their dream home on their own, resorted to taking money from the other wives to make it happen. Mary's down payment, Janelle's down payment, and the removal of Christine's mortgage from Kody's debt to income ratio were all orchestrated to clear the way for Robyn's lavish purchase.